Okay then. So this is a interview for Up Your Geek. Today we're talking with David Pepose. Did I pronounce that right, Dave?
David Pepose, yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. And so today we're going to be talking about David's recently released title, Scout's Honor, which I've had the pleasure of reading. It's a pretty solid book.
Thank you.
Um, I'll be doing my written review for Up Your Geek here probably within the next few days. So hopefully we can get that up by the end of the week. And so this book just hit the shelves this past Wednesday for New Comic Book Day, correct, Dave?
January 6th.
January 6th, fantastic. So that's definitely a place to come check that out. But I figured we'd have Dave on and we'd talk to him a bit about his book. And I've got a series of questions here for him that we're going to go through. But first, Dave, let us know a little about you.
Well, I'm David Pepose, and for those who don't know me, I'm the writer of books like Spencer and Locke and Going to the Chapel over at Action Lab, or the OZ, which just wrapped its first Kickstarter campaign just last month, or my new book, Scout's Honor, over at AfterShock. I've been in the periphery of the industry for a long time. I was a DC Comics intern when they were working on Final Crisis and Batman R.I.P., and also I served as the reviews editor at Newsarama for over a decade. I just wrapped up my 12-year tenure there 5 months ago today, actually.
Oh, wow.
I've been kind of doing a lot of things around the industry, while working an odd assortment of day jobs. I'm a former crime reporter. I'm a former TV publicist and PR manager. And a former Hollywood assistant. It's kind of a grab bag of experiences that have all really kind of come together in a big way, I think, for this book in particular.
Well, first of all, we're going to have to talk about your time with DC sometime after this interview,
sure,
because that I have all kinds of questions given the time frame that you were at DC during.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the best summer of my life. Such a wonderful experience, and really kind of set the ball rolling for a career in comics for me. So I'm always grateful for that experience. No, I'm an open book. Hit me. I'm happy to answer any questions you got.
So with we'll get right into this. So over the past few years, there's been a pretty big rise in the post-apocalyptic genre.
Yeah.
From all sorts of different angles, whether it be zombies, whether it be nuclear fallout.
Sure.
And so I guess the big question is, what made you chose that genre for this story? Like, what was the thing that really pushed you into tapping into this genre? Was there anything specific?
Sure.
Or
there's it's funny. I feel like 2020 was really my dystopian year. Between
most of us,
both in terms of living the real world and also just like what I was working in creatively, between Scout's Honor and the OZ and my Nightmare Theater horror short, Die Danger Ronin. I think some of it is like a little bit of just synchronicity of just there's a bunch of things kind of happening at once, but I think it's, unless you've been in a coma the last 4 years, it has felt a little dystopian, and I think that has certainly seeped into a lot of the popular imagination for sure. The thing about Scout's Honor is that a lot of it came from how do I tackle a book about religion, and I a big influence besides things like Fallout or or Handmaid's Tale or The Hunger Games. A big influence on this book was actually a show called The Path that was on Hulu. Aaron Paul was in it, and it's basically the story of like a Scientology style cult and what happens to Aaron Paul's character when he kind of gets disillusioned with the cult and tries to leave, and what happens to him and what happens to his family and what happens to kind of this second in command of the cult who really has been kind of steering everything behind the scenes because their L. Ron Hubbard figure is really on death's door and hasn't told anybody. And I really enjoyed watching the show. I grew up in a pretty conservative household in Missouri, both politically and religiously. I'm still a practicing Jew, but I saw a lot of parallels. Sort of what happens when you get to see like the outside world a little bit, and how that can kind of turn things that you thought were pretty bedrock and show you that no, like there's definitely another way of looking at things in the world. And so I watched that show and I thought to myself, like what's the weirdest thing that could be used as a Bible, to sort of start up your own religion. And the idea of a Boy Scout manual immediately kind of clicked with me. There's so much imagery and pageantry and iconography that goes in with the Boy Scouts that there was a lot of things you could riff on.
And that's actually a perfect segue into the next question I actually had.
I love it. Let's do it.
Which was, I do think that it is very interesting that you use the Boy Scout handbook for that, and I do agree with you on a lot of that. I think that it's already like a few steps away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, I mean, just looking at the way of the world today. I mean, or at least our country. There's the rise of this sort of evangelical thinking. There's the culture of toxic masculinity. There's the fetishizing of the military and these sort of survival preppers. And you sort of you wrap it in the American flag and God and country. That's why I think AfterShock realized that this book was more prescient than I did at first. And because when you look at it, you throw it all in a cauldron, you let it sit for 200 years, and maybe throw a couple nukes at it. Yeah, the Ranger Scouts, you don't have to squint too hard to see the link.
And so that's actually where I was going to ask. Were you ever in the Boy Scouts? Or
my brothers were. My younger brothers
were? Okay.
And I think that was kind of the initial kernel of this idea, was being, on the outside looking in, is that, for my brothers, it was all about the camaraderie and learning practical skills and hanging out with your boys. Maybe a little bit of a friendly rivalry going on. But, being on the outside, you see all the pageantry, and you see the costumes, and you see the laws, and, you don't have to squint too hard for it to turn into a cult. I mean, I think that's...
it's definitely one of those things where, and there have totally been incidents within the Boy Scouts, and it's one of the big reasons why there's a lot of issues with the organization that have come up in the past few years.
Yeah.
Where you have some scout leaders that definitely go too far with a bunch of shit. And due to the nature of the organization, it does almost feel like a cult, depending on and that's not for me to be taking any hits at the BSA as an organization, but like at the end of the day, it is definitely a organization where if you get into it and you are someone that ends up having a bit of a power complex, it's pretty easy to be intoxicated with that power when you are a den leader or a scout or a troop leader or what have you, and it can become a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, well, and it's like anything that you can sort of base part of your identity on, whether it's Boy Scouts or it's comics or anything that's sort of or any sports teams, is that if you take it to the logical, like, furthest extreme, of course, that's something you can build a cult on it. I think also some of it is, like the Boy Scouts, they've had their own scandals that are not dissimilar to the Catholic priest scandals.
Oh yeah, and that is certainly what I was referring to as well.
I saw the parallels for sure, and it was one of those things. My partner, she was raised Catholic, and she's not a member of the church anymore because of the priest scandals. That was something that was really hard for her to reconcile. Is how do you stay a part of this institution when the human side of it has it is so flawed and is covering things up that are really just horrifying. And that, I think, is kind of the real emotional crux of Scouts Honor in a big way. Kind of speaking, taking the priest abuse scandals and taking my own sort of spiritual journey as a practicing Jew, kind of mashing it together. How do you maintain your ethical and spiritual values while navigating the human institution that's so flawed and corrupt and sinister?
I think you do a fantastic job of setting that up there, especially within the last few pages of the book.
Yeah.
Now, so you had mentioned a little while back about throwing the nukes at the situation. And so this book starts off like the first like 2 pages is we get to see nuclear wasteland USA. We get to see these people that are effectively the pioneers of this quote unquote new world.
Yeah.
Heading out there with their Boy Scout manual. Are we going to get anything more from that period of rediscovery under this Boy Scout cult, or are we going to be, or is that going to be left more ambiguous so the audience kind of makes the worst possible assumptions about it? What are your plans for that without going too far into spoiler territory or anything?
Yeah, there's a lot of fun things that we're going to get to explore with the Ranger Scouts of America as a cult, and also kind of the Colorado Badlands in which they inhabit. There's been a lot of fun world building to this. I'm
sure.
I think a lot of that comes from me being raised Jewish, is that like it's a religion that's like built for literary criticism. You have like 5 different rabbis with 10 different interpretations of the same passage, and we
trust me, I get it. I was raised Jewish, so.
Yeah. So you keep all that apocryphal material in the margins, and so I had a lot of fun taking the iconography of the Boy Scouts and taking the iconography of the post-apocalyptic nuclear war, and finding the religion in it and trying to kind of imbue that with meaning. On our first issue, for example, we have our Ranger Scout merit badges, which is actually a cool promotion that AfterShock is doing. I believe it's
I thought that was one of the funnest parts of the the book itself was really cool, but going through the merit badge book at the end of it, I was like, that's fucking awesome.
It was super fun to write that. Things like, for example, the explosives merit badge, which I think is kind of the one of the more important ones to the Ranger Scouts as a culture. The world was born in an explosion, this new fallen world, and so they see bombs as these agents of great change. When nothing else can change things, a bomb can. But at the same time, these scouts are like obsessed with like payload compositions and like blast wave radii, because they know if you don't respect the bomb, that could consume you next. And so, finding kind of different ways to add a little bit of spirituality to this, it was very fun. It was really I had a blast working on that, and also getting to see different ways that the Badlands have changed. We're going to get to see a bit of that. We'll see some of it in issue 2. Issue 3 is where we'll really kind of get to see what's the world look like outside of the Ranger Scout compounds. It's not a pretty place. I guess issues 3 and 4, I would say. But yeah, it's been a fun world to flesh out. I feel like Kit, for a variety of reasons, is kind of walking on eggshells. It's not a big spoiler because I've talked about it in all the marketing. This is like a hyper masculine cult that's rooted in toxic masculinity. They only allow men to serve. And so Kit's big secret at the beginning of the book is she's a woman.
Yeah. And it's honestly like all over your main cover is one of the things that I really enjoy about how the book is drawn is it's left fairly ambiguous whether Kit could be a boy or a girl, but then on the cover, it's like a cover should sum up what your book is about in a singular image. And so, like, as much as Kit should be almost androgynous, you need to, like, that should be present there, where you're kind of like, oh man, that's probably a girl.
Yeah. Like, the way that happened was, when I first came up with the idea, one of the hurdles was, if it's a Boy Scout cult, I pitched it in 2019. In 2019, are you going to get away with a book that's like all dudes? And then I realized I could lean into that and really like put a finer point on, that is a weird thing, by showing this world of sort of toxic masculinity. What happens to the people that don't conform to that super hyper rigid mold? And so that's going to be something that we show in this book, is how does that affect women? How does that affect members of the LGBTQ community? It's in this case, it really is a man's world, and that means if you don't fit in that mold, it's very challenging to navigate.
And to counter your thing with I'm not sure how well a book will do with all the guys. I think that any book that you have, so long as you have a compelling narrative and a decent hook, you're going to do fine because people are thirsting for content out there.
Sure.
And in all honesty, these creator-owned IPs and this independent market is where people are getting the best quality content. A lot of stuff that's getting put out there from the big two have been underwhelming for a great majority of the audience, and that's just how it is, unfortunately.
Yeah,
And so I think that you have a brilliant concept, and I agree. Like, you have this whole thing where it's the boy. Like, I like the fact that you kind of change it up, where it's called the Ranger Scouts, but like effectively, this is the Boy Scouts of America. It's the like it's like it's
it was the
very
Please Don't
rigidly
Sue Me
defined,
Scouts.
even within its name. It's like you
Yeah.
kind of got to be a boy in order to be a Boy Scout.
Yes. Well, that was sort of, yeah, exactly. It's exclusionary just in the name.
Yeah.
Like,
and so I think that that's a really really smart play. And so going into the writing aspect again, without going into too many spoilers, are there any characters in Scout's Honor that you have written that you enjoy writing the most? I mean, obviously, Kit's your protagonist, but I find that for a lot of writers, myself being one, when I'm writing characters, writing your main character is fun, but you always have like a character that you love to kind of put through hell and what have you. And you have
well, I mean, sort of our central characters, and this is, I would say the cast in this book is actually fairly intimate. There's really kind of four main characters in there, and so each of them has been kind of fun in different ways. Kit has been kind of a fun character just to kind of see this world through. She's unlike a lot of the other characters I've written in the past, which kind of have been marinating in past trauma for a while. Despite growing up in the apocalypse, Kit's actually pretty well adjusted for the most part. And so we kind of get to see, her world kind of get pushed off its axis in real time and watch her kind of have to scramble to reorient herself. And Scoutmaster Shepard, kind of the political and religious leader of this cult, he's been super fun to write just because like he gets these like really juicy speeches. And
dude, the thing where he goes through the tenets of the Scout Code in your book was really good. Like, I liked that a lot.
It was, he's a very fun character, and so it's been fun kind of having him as he is the villain of the piece, so to speak. But like on the other hand, like he's got his reasons, I mean, he not only is this a culture that he's been raised in, he's X generation Ranger Scout, but he also, I understand the pressure on him. It's not just to sort of maintain the Scout way of life, but it's also to maintain like humanity in this apocalypse. He's sort of his feeling is like, yeah, we have to be the toughest thing in the Badlands. We're going to put our kids through hell to prepare them for it, because what's the alternative? We die out. And so I understand where he comes from. And Kit's father, Glenn, he's been, he's a super fun character to write just because I liked that even in like a post-apocalyptic world, like having like really a supportive feminist dad, like even though he probably wouldn't have the vocabulary to describe himself as such in that juncture, like I think that's really sweet. Like having a parent who
we don't even have to really attach too many labels to it. Just a parent that wants the best for their kid.
Yeah, wants their kid to be happy.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing.
And I think that's a good thing. I am excited to get some more from him, because like I think we only see Glenn for like a page
and a half. Yeah,
in this book. But like I think that that's one of those things that I don't think we get enough of in comics. It was one of the things that I loved about the Tomasi Superman run, was this focal point on how being good parents makes you just as much of a superhero as anything else.
Yeah.
Because it is such an important thing, and it doesn't matter what time period you're in, is having a parent that's willing to stand by you and push you to be the best version of yourself, and push you and try and guide you to a place where you can be happy and do all the things that you want.
Yeah,
Um,
it's he's sort of in a weird position, so I think he's handled it about as gracefully as
100%.
he could. But I will say, I think, besides Kit, I mean, I think my favorite character to write is her best friend Des.
The scoutmaster's
Her
son.
son, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think he's got a lot of potential.
he's
I'm really excited to see because like
he's yeah, he's been a fun character to write. Just because like he's kind of the Loki to Kit's Thor in a
Mhm.
way. He's the son of the Scoutmaster, so he's already got expectations on top of expectations. And yet he always comes up second best. And uh, just like Kit has a pretty big secret, so does Des. And I think the tragedy of their friendship is, despite them being each other's best friends, they each have a big secret that they haven't told the other one about, and that the other one doesn't know. And so that's going to really kind of curdle that friendship in a big way and really put them on a collision course with one another. Um, I feel for Des. I really do, and I feel like every time I've written him, there's an element of sadness to him as a character that I think a lot of people will really love him, despite him being like a little bit of an anti-hero, maybe even a little bit of like a villain in this. Is
I
that
think that he has a really great potential as an antagonist. I'm not even going
Yeah,
to. I don't think that he should be like. I don't think that he should be the villain of your story by any stretch. I think that you've got the villain pegged out pretty well in his dad.
like
But I think that Dez is a phenomenal antagonizing force
yeah,
because
he in his way, he also has an issue with conforming to the rigid mold of the Ranger Scout Society, and he's really kind of pulled in a lot of different directions, because he wants to please his dad, he wants to kind of live up to those expectations, but at the same time, like he's also got to live his own life, and so yeah, like seeing the way that Des and Kit, their relationship, I think, really provides the backbone of this story in a big way, emotionally. And they've both been really fun characters to write, really fun characters to play off one another. And yeah, it's just been I, for me, Des might steal the show a little bit in the scenes that he appears.
so that's the sign of a good side character, though. In all honesty, is like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, a protagonist obviously has to be compelling enough to bring the reader in and what have you. But I find that a lot of times, what makes a world have more dimension
Yeah.
and be more immersive is when you have their side characters uh, become such integral parts to the story, and in some ways even surpass
Yeah.
the main character and even their popularity and what have you. I think that that's actually one of the things that you see in the Eastern market in manga
Hmm.
that they do very well, is especially when you're looking at like that shonen genre. You've got very large casts, and while the main character is the person that does all the really cool stuff, the people that flesh out the world are the side characters. And
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so yeah, it's the cast. I've been very thrilled with how they've turned out, and they've just been it's been this book really snuck up on me in a big way, and I'm really I in certain ways I was just kind of chiseling through it and just being like, oh yeah, that tracks. Like that's something that would be sad for this character to do. And ultimately that's always my game plan, is if you had to sum up my career, it's like I come up with really absurd concepts that I then make people cry over. And I feel like that's as good of a business plan as any. And so yeah, I feel like when you kind of strip it all down, though, it really is kind of what happens when you grow up in a small religious conservative town and you don't fit in and you're trying to desperately. And I think secrets can be really oppressive and stifling and limiting. And at the same time, when you've lived in that under a secret for so long, suddenly the truth can be really blinding. And that's something that I think that's really the emotional core of Scout's Honor in a big way, is sort of what happens when you can't hide who you are any longer. and you know, and sometimes the truth will come out, and it can be painful once that happens, but ultimately it's for the best.
Yeah, no, I think that you've got something there. We're coming to the end of the interview,
Sure.
and so for the final question, we're going to just let everybody know how they can purchase Scout's Honor. I mean, obviously, as you said, it hit the shelves here
Yeah.
Wednesday, so local comic stores have it. But
Yeah. You can get it at
yeah,
your
and
local
then
comic shop, Comixology. They all have it. I know we'll be having a trade out for the series later in the summer. I want to say August or September. But yeah, indie books like ours, they live and die based on orders and pre-orders, and so you can actually pre-order issues 2 and 3 right now. The code for issue 2 is DEC for December, 2011 33, and for issue 3 it's Jan for January, 211049. You're really not going to want to miss issue 3. If you ever wanted to know what an Eagle Scout looks like in this world and what it takes to become one, you're definitely going to want to check out that 3rd issue. But yeah, you can pick up the book anywhere comics are sold. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Pepose D. It's my last name, first initial, or David Pepose Comics on Facebook. You can subscribe to my newsletter, Pep Talks, at bit.ly/Pep News. And finally, you can visit my brand new website at davidpepose.com.
alrighty then. Well, thank you so much, David,
My
for
pleasure.
stopping by and chatting with us for a little bit. And I hope anyone that's listening to this got a nice little window into Scout's Honor, and you guys need to go pick it up. As I said, I've already read the book, or at least the first issue. I'm looking forward to getting a hold of issues 2 and 3. Well worth your time.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
absolutely.